No, but so essentially, I'm not going to go too much into it, right? But this is just a lot of war stories from what I experienced going from 0 to 100 customers a few times now. There we go. I've had, just quickly about me, I've been fortunate to be part of a few good journeys out there. Early on, I started as a professional Counter-Strike player in my career. It's called esports now. All this thing you see on TV, a lot of people, that wasn't it. It was more like the basement, and yeah, it was just not as cool back then. But I consider myself a bit of a pioneer in the esports space. That's because of us they did it. Anyways, after that, gradually I had my own thing, and then family, and now Tame, which is like first sales every single time pretty much. So it's been from 0 to many customers a few times. I'm just going to go into it. I have a few points, and I figured also because we talk so much about scaling, in the first phase, what I learned is that you should do things that don't scale. This is obviously great for scaling. What I mean about this is that scaling is obviously super important, but in the early stages, no one really cares about all this stuff. We all look at the graphs that they showed earlier, we all read the stories and all that, and we read about pricing and yada, yada, yada. Doesn't matter when you have 8 customers, no one cares about you. So you got to do different stuff. And I think Niels Henrik said some of it pretty good also, that you got to get out there. My first point being, get on a jet in the beginning. You have to go over there. We've done it multiple times. Every single startup I did is that you get out there right away. Like, even though it doesn't matter if you're a technical founder or whatever it is, this is more of a on the return on investment side, where say you're afraid to go to London because it costs money or something like that. I have really good experience with, if an inbound comes, it's from London, get on a plane over there, cost 300 krona or something like that. Book 3 more meetings over there, just go. It works because every single time you go in there, you learn so much about the customer and the FaceTime value. Even though phone sales is great, you need it for scaling and all that stuff. But in the early stages, spending money on this stuff and just doing it makes a ton of difference when you're trying to figure out how to scale this playbook, how to build the whole playbook about it. Second part that has always been really good is trade shows. I've had a lot of success going to them. It can seem premature, and again, when we talk about scaling, everyone talks, is events good, is it a good idea, whatever. Again, doesn't matter in the beginning, just go. If you can find an industry-specific trade show about what you do, bring your team. Again, you can do it so cheap. Anywhere in Europe, you can fly, stay on a hostel, go get hammered at the cheapest bar you can find, and just meet these people. It works, right? Because not only do you get tons of conversations, you buy the smallest stand possible, of course. You just stand there and pitch. You meet so many people that are relevant to your product, but you also see what's going on. What are they talking about? Which competitors are there? What are they doing? How is it working? Every time we've done this, it doesn't matter which company I've been in, you come home invigorated, you talk about new stuff, new ideas come up, you got new angles on the market. And you just learn so much from it that you can then take back, put into the product. The final one is always a talked about one. Was some people call it value-based pricing, as we do in the beginning. We all obsess about pricing models and scaling and unit economics and yada yada. Again, doesn't matter when you have 6 customers. It really doesn't. The one I've heard the most is that people are scared about what if they talk together? Like someone pays $100, someone pays $120. Again, newsflash, no one cares about you. You have 7 customers, they're not going to talk to each other. And if they do, again, it'll be fine. Just give the one that get it for 120, give them a rebate, and everyone has forgotten about that. So don't worry so much about it. Get an internal pricing model going. Of course, you have an idea of what it should cost, but it's a lot of testing in the beginning. Just say something. If it was 100 one time, try 200 next time, see what happens. And yeah, anyways. All these things obviously don't scale that well when you have to make a playbook and all that stuff, but that's for later. You don't need a playbook for getting the first 40 customers. Yeah, so generally it's just the things that don't scale is getting on jets. Again, it can scale later on, bigger deals and all that, but in the beginning, just do it. Don't worry about the opportunity size. At industry-specific events and varied pricing, they're not going to lynch you for it. Don't worry about it. So the second point, I think, is very important also, that it's important to understand when you go into a market, the vast majority of people you go out and sell to, it doesn't matter. Like when you go out, you attack on the sales front, but the vast majority of people, they're not going to buy the journey. And that means that not everyone is like you, us people right here. Like we're entrepreneurs, we want to do different stuff, but the vast majority in the market and in companies, they're not like that. They might say that they may say that they're like that, but they're not. They usually look for finished products and not necessarily that interested in taking the journey. They might take the conversations, they're interested in it, think it's fun, like your energy and all that stuff, but those are the kind of customers which can be really good for later, but they just don't really get it. It's kind of like they have process, they have, it's very rigid, all of it, super boring, but they're the exact customers that go out and say, if you could just build these 2 features, then I'm gonna buy it. Get back to me in 3 months. And you go and build these things, they look at it again like, that's great. If you can build these 2 features on top of it, it's gonna be great. And it never stops, that whole thing. You gotta find the people that understand this part, the vision, the journey of it. Like some people like that, again, it's like 1 in 10 or something like that. And the most important part about it is, again, that the ones that you get early on, they're not bad. They might be the right customer. You just have to get to them later. Like they might fit the ICP that you're trying to build and everything, but they might not get it. So you find these champions inside the companies that say like, hey, that's cool. Okay, you're going somewhere. Let's go on this journey, because they get it. They get that you're gonna go a bit left, go a bit right. It's gonna break tomorrow, etc. All these things that you have to go through in the beginning. You need people that are not like the first slide to survive through that one. They get the journey of it. Those people, they need to dictate product market fit more than the other ones. And later on, again, you can get to the big ones because that's usually where the big mass market is. But in early stages, you find the visionaries to dictate product market fit. And essentially, you have to build a tribe, as I call it, right? You got to get people that are aligned about the same vision, not necessarily in the Darth Vader, Death Star, galaxy domination style like here, but you have to find people that want the same thing, that they see the journey that you're on, so you can slowly build 5, 10, 20, 30 customers that all get the same part. So that once you get the new customers, hey, call this person, which we, by the way, went on a jet and visited 4 times. So you can now call them and say, do you believe these guys? Yes, they're really working hard for it. That's also very, very key. I don't know how much time I'm just racing. Okay, I'm done soon, so I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So again, learn from the rigid ones, come back later, don't let them dictate too much. It's going to skew. I think, I don't know, many people may have tried it. You end up with customers all over the place, all sorts of geographies, all sorts of great pipeline deals and everything that isn't going to move you anywhere because you're just building and building and building. Don't do that, just come back to them. The ones that really get it, regardless of it's not the right problem that you're trying to solve, but it's sort of in the vicinity, but they really understand what you guys are trying to do. That's what we have success with doing. And then build the tribe. Get these first customers that we can use as references has been really, really good. The third part is the one I usually talk the most about, and especially I think that for the people of us in here who are sales, that then go into technical founders and say, okay, let's go and sell this thing. There's predetermined market conditions, as I say, you have to accept them. There's predetermined market conditions that you can't do anything about in the beginning. And this usually comes up in pricing. Got some sort of technical founder saying, this is changing the world. It's the best thing I've ever seen. It's gonna cost 5 million right off the bat. You go out in the market, you find out the sort of stuff like there already, it doesn't cost 5 million. They think it costs 50,000. You might be able to sell it later for 5 million, but you have to accept once you go into a market as an underdog. I have a very specific example. I remember in the early days of Family, we went over with the Danish product market fit. We went to the UK. We thought this was the greatest thing ever we had built. We went over and we pitched 3x the price of the market over there. And we had no idea what we were doing. Just like, this is great. Everyone in Denmark loves it. And they just looked at us like, you guys, you're great guys, Scandinavian, I get it, but you're out of your mind. This is never gonna happen. Like, if you build this, we might consider buying it for half the price. So like, okay, that was really hard. So we spent 2 months tinkering around that and thinking, this is a bad idea. How about we lower the price? And we slashed the price like 1/3, and we started selling something on the vision part as before, because they're like, oh, this is interesting. We might get there. They understood we were right around the other ones, but we were onto something. So about this, time, I find, is the number one. That I've sat there numerous times, tried to sell something where you feel that because you spent 3 years developing something in the trenches and you think this is great again, You feel that that's some sort of a cost that people are going to give you a medal for when you go into the market, but they're not going to do that. They actually really don't care. They just think it's a thing to get into the market. You come up with yours and they're like, oh, interesting. So it's like your competitor. No, it's not like that. It's like, this is brilliant. And they're like, oh, but it seems like your competitor. But, oh, fuck. It's really important, this part. So you have to accept that when you go into the market, doesn't matter if you spend 4 years building it, if you want to monetize it and get the first customers, just accept what it is right now. Say, okay, those 4 years, doesn't matter. There's 4 more years coming. It's a long journey, like the whole SaaS journey especially, right? But that's an important one. No one's going to give you credit for that. This one, it's, how to explain it the best? But when you find yourself educating, I've had this many times also, we talk about scaling customer teams, customer success, sales teams, and you need a ton of people in SaaS especially. There's BDRs, there's account executives, there's customer success and all that stuff. When you find yourselves in a position where all the traction that you're doing, you have to spend so much manpower on it, so much process. It's good, obviously, if you go at a high speed, but usually in the early days, it's a tendency that you're educating way too much. And when you're educating too much, you probably haven't had the right value proposition. Again, this is what I worked with many times. It's a long fight to find the right value proposition, solve the right problem for the right people, like Niels Henrik talked about also. You got to find a way to educate less. That's what I find. So if you spend so much resources on it, narrow your market down. It's all the way, again in family and Tame now, many exercises about how can you narrow your market as small as possible to make it a lot easier to solve one problem. So it's like we sell X amount of software to medical companies in California on the West Coast with CEOs named Michael and around 50 employees. Don't have to do it that crazy. But it's a good exercise to think about it that way, that you just do it as small as possible, because this becomes a lot easier then. Then you find people. Then you find this Michael guy. It's like, hey, that's me. I'm the only one on the West Coast. But whatever, that's me. Yes, exactly. We build it for you. And you're not going to have to educate as much. And then you can go right into it somehow. And then, again, jumping back to the whole tribe thing, you can sort of maneuver out from there. The final part about product market fit in the early stages, Legos. Yes, this is great. When you think about taking a product to market, and this is where the whole product market fit comes into play. Everyone thinks it's about, we just add more features, right? It just needs to do more. And this comes into play whether or not it's product market fit in early stages with 3 customers, or you're taking on a new market or something like that. It's never about more blocks usually. It's about, if you build a model out of these Legos right now, it's going to look in a certain way with certain kind of colors. You put it to someone, say like, look, we built this, do you want to have it? And they're like, looks weird. And then you find out it's usually about that they're used to seeing the exact same model, but with the yellow on the bottom, because they have different lingo, they just have a different way of thinking about it. So you might have solved the right problem, but there's so much hidden stuff. When we've taken products, literally, put them out, say, how about this? Okay, nope. Flip it around, how about this? And they're like, yes, this is genius. Like, okay, I showed you the exact same thing yesterday, but whatever, it's the same thing. This comes into the playbook, it comes into the pitching. What do you pitch first when you go into your project management tool or your workflow management tool? All these things, they matter a lot more than you usually think. And this one, I use it a lot in my sales training also, that it's usually about the people that you're trying to communicate to, how they're used to seeing something. It can be the smallest things when you go into market, smallest things. Remember at family, we called it, I'm not going to go into the technical term of it, but something was called plans. We called it plans, and it was called schedules in their term. And we spent so much time fighting about it. Like this, here's the plans. And like, okay, interesting, yeah, plans. Don't know what that is. And they sort of looked around it, and they're like, we're going to call it schedules. Here's your schedules. Oh, schedules, I have a lot of those. Okay, interesting, thank you. Exact same thing. And this, I had so many examples where this happened, and it's just perception, a lot of it. And again, when you backtrack from the market, educating less, find all these small things. There's a lot of small wins that you don't have to develop your way out of. You just got to listen. And I hope this is also what I show with all the things. Get out there, understand it, meet these people. Don't worry so much about how it's going to look when I have 1,000 customers or 2,000 customers or anything, because it doesn't matter, all these things. And it's a lot easier once you get to the 100 customers, you understand all these things. You understand the Legos, how they work in UK. You understand how they work in Germany. Well, not Germany, that's hard, don't do that. But skip it, it's a nightmare. But outside of that, you get it, right? And from there, you start building the playbook. That's the whole idea. And I literally just spent a lot of time talking about that. You get the point. We've been around it now. No one cares about the time. That doesn't matter. Narrow your market, and just the same blocks, but in a different order, can make a world of difference when you go into a market. And that's it.